happening, you guys? Welcome back to Let's Go Win podcast, where we are here to help you be happy, healthy, wealthy, and get better every single day. The episode that you're about to listen to is freaking phenomenal. This young man is doing some big things. It is an awesome story about an entrepreneur's journey, about a personal challenge he went through while building this incredible business. It is chock full of golden nuggets throughout. Brandon Aversano, with extensive experience in financial services, identified a gap in the market for a trustworthy solution to exchange pre-owned precious metal jewelry or scrap metal for cash. He founded Alloy with the mission of bringing radical transparency to the precious metals exchange industry. Alloy provides upfront estimates and fast, secure payments for selling gold, silver, or platinum jewelry, making it easy and safe for consumers to exchange their items for cash. This episode was freaking phenomenal. And guys, I know I said that, and I mean this sincerely. This gentleman he's just dynamic. He has this amazing outlook on life. I've seen entrepreneurs many a time have an idea, but not know where to go with it. And while he's going through a personal tragedy, literally he's going through cancer in his early 30s, he's going to exchange jewelry essentially for cash to pay for his medical bills. And he finds out the experience sucks, man. This isn't working. I'm getting like 10 cents on the dollar for my $1,000 watch. I'm going to get $10 back. And what he realizes, this isn't right. This is, or $100. Maybe I said that incorrectly. $100 back. So he says, look, this isn't right. I have an opportunity here to serve a market and a need. And he's created this incredible company called Alloy. And they're doing it differently. They're literally disrupting this market, and people are 100%. They're lining up to be a part of it. He has surrounded himself with incredibly bright people. But here's my favorite part about the interview. When I asked him about his mindset, he's going through cancer and decides he's going to build a company simultaneously. That doesn't happen. I've talked to many times about not being a victim and being a victor. This guy literally defines that, where he sees an opportunity. He decides, you know what? I have this amazing perspective. Thank you, cancer. And I'm going to go build something incredible. It's rare when you meet somebody that just knocks your socks off. And that's what Brandon did for me. I think you guys are going to hear so many amazing, tangible takeaways. If you're looking to start your own business, or you've considered being an entrepreneur, or how to really, succeed professionally, he's going to give you so many good tips throughout. I cannot stress it enough. Enjoy this episode. Get your pen and paper ready. Write this stuff down, because he's sharp. He has built something incredible. And here's the best part. It is literally, they are built to serve. This is a mission-driven organization, and he's very clear on that. Very intentional about the culture that he's building with the company, and they're having explosive growth because of it. So enjoy the episode. DM me. Hit me up on Let's Go Win 365 on Instagram. Let me know your thoughts. What did you love about it? What should I expand on next time? Because I thought I asked as many questions as I could in that 45-minute window, but I had 100 more that I could have asked. So if there's something there, you're like, James, you got to hit this one harder. Let me know. DM me on Let's Go Win 365 on Instagram, and let me know your thoughts. All right. Enjoy the episode. Brandon, what's up, brother? Welcome to the show.
How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Man, I'm blessed. I got to tell you, it's we have backgrounds, at least financial service. We have that in common. That's how I built my first 3 companies, was in that world. Tell me about your experience. How long were you in financial services? What did that look like for you? And then you found a totally different gap into a totally different field. So it's funny how that happens. But how did you get into both financial services and then ultimately what you're doing today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and thank you again so much for having me. I'm a big fan of your content, so it's a pleasure to be here. Happy to share a little bit more about how I got to where I am now. So I've kind of bounced around the corporate world for the last decade, even internal at different companies. I was doing a lot of finance work, but ended up jumping ship from JetBlue to JP Morgan Chase, where I was working on some of their largest co-branded credit card portfolios. So I spent several years there working in the credit space, and then was very unexpectedly and unfortunately, surprisingly diagnosed with cancer about 2 years ago while I was working at JP Morgan Chase. And so that kind of led me to where I am now. So while I was working at JPM, I ended up having to take disability to go through my cancer treatment. And during that time, I attempted to sell some of the gold jewelry that I had inherited from my grandmother who had passed the year prior. And the experience was terrible. I was living in Center City, Philadelphia at the time. I took some of those pieces into jewelry stores and pawn shops, and jam, the experience was horrible. I was intimidated. I was bullied. It was a really bad experience. And so I thought to myself, there has to be an online way to do this. There's an online way to do everything. Think about the historically unpleasant in-person car dealership experience, and then Carvana took that and made it not. But when I looked online, what I found was that the existing option set was merely digital equivalents of brick and mortar pawn shops. And so I thought to myself in that moment, there are a lot of other people. Like, if I'm getting taken advantage of in my most vulnerable moment, in my time of need, there are a lot of other people who are also probably experiencing the same phenomenon. And that hypothesis ultimately was correct, sadly. And since then, I launched Alloy Market, which we like to say is the highest paying, easiest to use, and most transparent platform through which the everyday consumer like you and me can exchange their gold or other jewelry for honest and fair prices. And we're just extremely proud of what we're doing, because not only are we a business and profit's important to us, but we very, very much consider ourselves a mission focused and mission, driven organization. So
Wow.
that's kind of how we got to Alloy.
Amazing. Well, first off, how are you doing cancer wise, brother? How are you in remission? How's that looking for you?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking. Not everyone does, so I very much appreciate that. I recently had my 8-week scans at University of Pennsylvania Hospital, and I'm in the all clear for now, but I will have to go back every 8 to 12 weeks for the next 3 years for checks. But I'm in remission and all clear as of right now. So thank you so much for asking.
Oh, of course, brother. I mean, look, the mindset alone, you're, like you said, in this moment of vulnerability, you're a young guy, man. So I'm sure this diagnosis hits you pretty hard to begin with.
Yeah.
But to have this experience and say, you know what, not only am I going to fight for my life with cancer, but I'm actually going to start a company because I see a need. I mean, look, brother, that's amazing, but that's not typically how people are. They're not necessarily in that mindset. So clearly, you're not a victim, man. You're like, all right, I'm dealing with it. And by the way, there's some bullshit going on. I'm getting taken advantage of.
Yes.
I'm just going to start a company while I'm dealing with fighting for my life. I mean, tell me about your mindset, man. That's pretty remarkable.
Well, thank you so much. And part of it is that, and I say this somewhat tongue in cheek, although I mean it for me personally. Cancer kind of saved my life in a way. It was extraordinarily challenging, and don't get me wrong, when I think I was 30 or 31 at the time, when you get a diagnosis and like cancer, and a doctor says to you those words, you're like, wait a minute, I'm a young guy. I thought I knew everything that I was going to do. I have a good job. I know what my life plan is. And so when that happened to me, it was an opportunity to kind of take a look and take stock of what my life was like. And is this what I wanted? And is this the path I wanted to travel? And I've always been like a really kind of mission-focused, mission-driven person anyway. And so honestly, this just felt like a non-choice. This opportunity was when I was diagnosed. And then when I had this realization, it felt like an absolutely inevitable path that I must follow. And so I took it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish everyone took that attitude. You're not the first person I've heard say, not thank you, cancer, but to a degree where it's like, this is some real perspective. What was the reason, like, you found yourself, I'm not exactly fulfilled in the career I was doing. Okay, I had a plan, but I'm not really loving it. And again, I think what I really want to get out of this is recognizing an opportunity, no matter when it happens. Obviously, it's a dark moment, I imagine, going through this, and you're getting like traded and bartered, and they're trying to undercut you, and like this isn't a positive experience. And yet you recognize, wait a minute, there's a real opportunity to not only serve but be fulfilled in my career. Look, man, there's a lot of people that aren't going through that have opportunities knocking them on the head, and they're just not taking them, man. So I just want to explore that a little bit. What was it about your previous career? It just wasn't really for you, or what were you thinking, man?
I'm going to be honest with you. At the risk of getting myself into trouble, although I own my own business now, so I guess I can't get in too much trouble. I had this realization actually prior to being diagnosed with cancer, that all of these corporations that I worked for, and I have nothing negative to say about them. I've worked at Deloitte, I've worked at JetBlue, I've worked at JP Morgan. They are world-class organizations with world-class leadership, no complaints. The realization, though, that I had was, at the end of the day, I could bust my ass. As I could work 20 hours a day, and at the end of the year, I had a percentage bonus potential. So I could kill myself through the entire year and crush it and crush it and crush it. And ultimately, kind of the spoils of my efforts would ultimately ever go to the top of the food chain. And so I realized that like at all these all hand meetings and all of these, emails and correspondences that you get from leadership about, you should be filling your empty time with extra work, and you should be always on. And if you're working remotely, that doesn't mean it's time for Netflix in the middle of the day and all this kind of stuff. And what I was realizing was like, wait a minute, we're all kind of busting our asses so hard, and we're not the ones at the end of the year that are going to be rewarded for this. At least not on the scale that, our efforts kind of contribute to up the food chain. So, I was really unfulfilled because I felt like my peers and I were working really, really, really hard, maybe not for our own best interest at the end of the day. And so that was another thing that kind of had me already thinking like, wow, if I'm going to put in 60, 70 hours a week, I want to do it for myself. Like I want to be building something that ultimately leads toward an end that is good for me and my family and the other folks that I'm trying to bring up along with us. So that's the truth.
Yeah, let's talk about that support system, that family, because when you take that leap of faith from corporate to entrepreneur, creating again, you own some gold, you own some jewelry, but it's like this isn't necessarily your background. And so this is a major decision. And often this is where I see people stop and get scared, I guess, for lack of a better term, and go back to that corporate job because that's the safe route. That's the route I know. How is that for you, brother? Did you have great support behind you where they're like, you know what, Brandon, we believe in you. We do see what you're seeing. And even if we don't see it, we believe in you. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I am so humbled and lucky and grateful and blessed that my family and friends were so supportive, really from the very beginning. But I kind of want to answer your question in a different way, honestly. As much support, and it is critical. If you don't have a support system surrounding you, it is going to be a really hard, long road. So I would recommend making sure that you do have a support system in place. But in the conversations that I've had with fellow founders and mentors, investors, other entrepreneurs, I really think that the most important person that needs to believe is you, right? And so at the end of the day, if you don't have 100% confidence, if you at the end of the day don't feel that sense of conviction that you cannot ignore, that you know that this is the path you have to follow it, because the moment you start to not believe in yourself, the moment you start to rely on other people believing in you to keep you going, you're going to be in a really kind of a sticky place, because at the end of the day, the buck stops with you and the motivation starts with you, and it all kind of flows from you. So it's very, very important to have a support system. I feel incredibly lucky and grateful, but my number one piece of advice to entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs is to keep that flame alive within you, because that's what's going to keep you going when it gets super, super hard and you're kind of doing it on your own.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, man. The belief does it does start with you. There's no question. Talk to me about Alloy in general. Is this a worldwide company that you've created, and how did you differentiate so much from, like you said, the pawn shop feel or that used car dealer? I mean, everybody I think can imagine in their mind, like walking in, the guy's got about, and I'm assuming it's a guy for some reason, 12 rings on his fingers, kind of looking at you like a piece of meat because I know what this is worth and I'm not giving you what the market price is.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's the experience. And maybe you can paint that picture, which I think will really distinguish how you made it so different. And by the way, my wife's going to be sending you a bunch of stuff, so that's cool too.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Well, we will take extra good care for, as we always do for all of our customers. But no, it's a really great question. I was kind of lucky enough early in my career to spend a bunch of my time doing kind of product design and development. I spent the first 2 years of my career actually traveling around the country, interviewing veterans in their homes, and then designing new products and services at the Department of Veterans Affairs to better meet veterans' needs. And so I've always really been passionate and interested in customer experience and figuring out how to deliver better experiences. I did not have any plan for that to lead into my own kind of entrepreneurship journey. But yes, so the way that we differentiated ourselves, to answer your question regarding pawn shops, the pawn shop model is really easy. And I'll explain it to you in one sentence. They give you 10 to 20 cents on the dollar. That's it, right? And like that's what you're getting. And so the population most often who are going there are ones who are super desperate, unfortunately, like I was. I needed money. I needed to pay off my medical bills. I didn't have another way to generate income. And so they were like, cool, for every dollar, we'll give you 10 or 20 cents. Well, that didn't sit well with me. And the reason it didn't sit well was because the reason they were allowed to do that was not because that's what the value of the item was. It was merely a function of the fact that the only players in the market thrived on that opacity, on that opaque model. They didn't say to you, I'll give you 10 to 20 cents, right? But I knew what the items were worth. So the biggest kind of transition that we've made from the pawn shop brick and mortar model to our model is a couple of things. One, transparency at all costs. Any question you have, you want to know what percent we're paying you out, you want to know what your estimate is up front, you got it. You don't even have to send us your pieces, which is a total, that is completely new in the industry. All the other gold buyers are going to make you send them your stuff. They're going to bully you. You don't even need to send us your piece. We'll give you an estimate over the phone or via our app. So transparency is huge. Value is huge. So we pay 75% or greater, depending on the volume and quantity of the piece. So you're going from 10 to 20 cents on the dollar to 75 to 90.5%. So it's a huge value drive. And then at the end of the day, there's no intimidation or negotiation or bullying because we offer the best price in the industry. So you don't have to feel icky about it. And that's one of our like primary goals. It's for so long, cash for gold has had this taboo and weird association to it. And it's because of the companies that have been involved in it. Cash for gold, we all have these great assets sitting around the house that we could unlock real liquidity from, that we could use to buy a 6-seater sofa that we need, or like a new honeymoon with our spouse or whatever it is. And so we just want to give people that experience. So we're creating a whole new model for folks.
That's amazing. So I'm guessing volume is the key here. I don't know anything about your business. I don't know the margins or any of that, but I'm guessing volume is a huge part of that. And then I guess my second question would be, what do you do with all this gold? This, is it going back out in resale? Is it getting like melted down? I mean, treat me like a 5-year-old on this one, because I'm probably not even at that level of education. My wife would be the one that would know some of this stuff, but I'm really curious because it's a fascinating idea. And to your point, there's not a home out there that you walk through and you're like, yeah, that stuff's just sitting there and in boxes. It's not giving anybody any value or pleasure. It's just sitting.
Right.
And now it sounds like you're going to be able to provide that for others. So what does that look like once so A, I guess, is it a volume play, and then B, what do you do after?
Yeah. So I could answer the first part in two different ways. So it's certainly a volume play, but from like an economics and a cost structure perspective, we've built the business to operate healthily on that smaller margin. So we're never going to offer customers lower. Like, we are where we are. That's the business model. We are committed to continuing to offer customers the highest and best prices in the industry, even though, to your point, we are trying to drive as much volume as possible. And the second part of your question was around sort of all the dormant like the dormant gold that's kind of sitting around, and the opportunity for folks to kind of cash in on that. And that's huge for us. Like one of the reasons that we've kind of realized that kind of volume of assets, that kind of volume of gold is kind of just like locked up and hanging out there, is because folks like you, like me, didn't really realize how the market worked. We all just thought it was kind of this icky taboo. You take it to some weird store on the side of the road and you get screwed, and that's the end of it. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like it doesn't have to be that way. So we're incredibly excited about what we're doing. Can you kind of fill out your question there?
Well, I'm just imagining. Oh, you collect.
Let's
Let's just say.
Other end with it.
Yeah, like what does that look like, brother? Because you're right. This is a subject like I'm envisioning somebody in Vegas right now that literally is down on their luck. They're scraping by, and they're going to get $200 for some $5,000 Rolex, and they're going to go put it on black. Like this is the picture in my mind. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you're doing it far differently. I get that.
Yes.
What I'm thinking though is what now happens with that Rolex? Where do we go from there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we operate quite differently from a pawn shop in that the pawn model is essentially we're going to pay you 10 cents on the dollar, and then we'll sell it for 50 or 60 cents on the dollar, resale at the store. As of right now, as of today, Alloy does not resell the pieces to the public. We've actually contracted with several of the largest precious metal refineries in the United States, who take all of our precious metals, primarily gold. They refine them and melt them down. And then all of that precious metal is actually reused in medical equipment, electric vehicle batteries, electronics, circuit boards. And so one of the other things we're incredibly proud of is that we play a really important role in the virtuous cycle of recycling precious metals. Because mining is really, really bad. Net new mining is really bad for planet Earth. So the more that we can recycle already mined precious metals, the better it is for everyone across the board. So yeah, we work very, very closely with refineries, and all of the metals that people send into us are recycled and put to really, really good use.
No kidding. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How are you accepted in your industry? Are you like the leper where they're like, you know what, young buck, like you're screwing with our system here? Or have people said, you know what, this is pretty cool? I'm just curious because it's obviously somewhat of a disruption to the typical market.
Yeah.
And yet I imagine the pawn shops are going to do fine for a long time because that's what people know. But it sounds like you guys are really bringing this to the age that we're in, which is it's an online world.
Yes.
You should be able to have a good experience. So how are you viewed in your industry, quote unquote? And I'm not even sure if you're in the same industry. The way you describe it, it's like, yes,
yeah,
but truly you're doing it so differently. Do you have people that are like, you know what, Brandon, we need to have a sit down? Or is it like, you know what, good for you, kid?
It's well, let's put it this way. Our the industry folks are not super happy. Consumers are so freaking happy. So we're doing something right, No, but in all seriousness, the pushback has been pretty real, pretty swift. There are definitely some folks that are super unhappy. But if you think about it, they're just, for so long, there has been so few players in the space. So few. There are really, and I won't call them out by name, there are probably like 2 to 3 dominant online players. They have the same exact model. They've been running this the same way for a long time. There are a lot of affiliate bloggers that kind of support them. And so it is a hard industry to crack because you're trying to basically break through cement that's been solidifying for 10 years, and they're pissed about it. But here's what I'll tell you. Customers are already sending us appraisal kits that they're receiving from other companies. And I'll explain what that means. Customers are gold selling shopping. And so they're going on Alloy, and then they're going on whatever website, and they're getting all the collateral and thinking about their options. And then they're saying like, oh, wait, why wouldn't we go with the brand, the company with the reviews, the company that is very modern and kind of speaks to our modern sensibilities? Like, we're not used to working with monolithic domain names like www.xyz.com. That's not a company, We're used to dealing with Apple or Nike or a brand. And so that's what we're bringing to the space. And people are very unhappy about it.
Well, congrats, I suppose.
Yeah.
Tell me the biggest change for you. I'm going to shift gears a bit
Yeah.
and go a little bit more. Your experience between corporate now to being truly an entrepreneur, because it is a different world, and I imagine you're putting in maybe as many hours, maybe more, but you're starting to probably really have the fruits of your labor. And that's, look, guys, this isn't to beat on people in corporations. I
No.
know people that have done wildly successful as executives in the corporate world, but it is a different space for sure.
Yeah.
How has that experience gone for you, brother? And can you ever imagine going back?
No, I can never imagine going back. But similar to you, I would never knock anyone who has a corporate job. I did for over a decade, and I certainly would not be standing where I am today had I not had all the experiences and mentors and leaders and executives that I've met within the past. So I don't think it's a bad route. In fact, I would encourage most people to get a little flavor of what it's like to be in corporate America prior to starting entrepreneurship anyway. Um, but for me, I think what has been the most rewarding, the biggest change, what's been most special, honestly, is that myself and my leadership team, not only are we building, a business and a profit engine and doing those types of things, but we're also building like a really incredible culture. And when you start at a corporation, you start by inheriting what exists already. Whereas when we started Alloy, we were very, very intentional about what kind of place we wanted Alloy to be. We were very intentional about what we wanted it to feel like on a Sunday night when you had to wake up and go to work the next morning. I remember what it felt like to have my stomach hurt on Sunday nights and dread getting up the next morning. I don't feel that way anymore. And I hope and I do my best to make sure that my team doesn't feel that way anymore. So I would say that's one of the biggest changes is business is always going to be hard. The problem sets are going to change and you're going to have to solve them. But when you really have an opportunity to create something special from a culture perspective, it's just an opportunity that I personally take very, very seriously, and it has been extraordinarily rewarding.
Do you guys have, do you have a corporate office? Are you all over? What does that look like? Because we're in such a different workspace than we were
Yeah.
4 or 5 years ago. What does that look like? Because building culture, I mean, now we're really speaking my language. This is my favorite stuff.
Okay.
But it's interesting how I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday. They were struggling trying to build it in this virtual world.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we were diving into. What does it look like for your setup? Is it corporate office and virtual? What does that look like, Brandon?
Yeah, great question. It's about half and half. So the physical operations, because we deal with metals receivables. We're not a B2B AI SaaS cloud software company that's all sexy like everyone else. So we have to have physical space and machinery and stuff that can actually test and weigh the metals that are licensed by the government. And so we have about half our employees here, and then a whole bunch of our corporate folks are spread out. We've got folks in Georgia and Texas, California. Um, but I will say that to kind of your point, there are different ways of engaging those different populations. Like the population that sits here, you engage in one way. The population that's remote, you have to engage in another. But what I have found is that as long as you are hyper intentional about how you interact with remote folks and about giving folks opportunities to come together at some point. So for example, last month, early January, we brought the whole team, all of our advisors, mentors, the board of directors, all to New York City, had like a 3-day kind of sync, and it was exceptional. And that allowed everyone to, tighten their bonds, put faces to names, meet face to face. And so I think as long as you're trying to strike the right balance between, giving folks autonomy and making sure that they're good with remote, but also ensuring that they have the opportunity to touch in person, that's what's worked really well for us so far.
Yeah, the scale of your operation, this company, I think you said is 2 years old. Is that right?
It's you could say technically 2 years, but honestly, it hasn't been customer facing for that long. It went customer facing in June of last year.
You guys have scaled tremendously quickly in terms of, you just mentioned board of directors, you mentioned machinery, and immediately in my head, I'm going, well, wait a minute. He saw an issue. Now he's going to go attack it. How you would have to surround yourself with incredibly talented people that know the industry, that know, unless somehow you have a background that I'm unaware of, that's like, yeah, man, I know what machinery I need to weigh this and to do that. Tell me about that part of it, because hiring and finding the right people, especially as you're trying to develop that culture. Again, this is the world that I grew up in. This is the world that I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
What did that look like for you, brother? Because I have to imagine you have surrounded yourself with some really gifted people in the space, and that's allowed you to accelerate your growth as quickly as you have.
Yeah, it's a really great question. And again, this is why I would never kind of rag on anyone for taking a corporate job or a corporate career. I have always been it's always been extremely important to me to create authentic relationships with people. Full transparency, had no hard and fast plans to become an entrepreneur. So the relationships that I was building in my corporate jobs, my corporate gigs, they were truly just because I enjoyed working with people. I liked helping with people. And so along the way, I was able to kind of create a community of just exceptional, brilliant, bright people. So just to give you an idea of some of the folks who are kind of involved with the project right now. So we have our lead investor is actually, her name's Linda Lai. She's the founding chief marketing officer of Ruggable. I don't know if you're familiar with Ruggable, the rug company. It's you should ask your wife. There's a lot of Ruggables out there. She's one. We have the outgoing chief marketing officer of Uber and the current executive vice president and chief marketing officer at Clear on our board. And then our advisors are luminaries in the field. It's ex-CTOs, it's ex-CMOs, it's current CMOs. So we've really come to see ourselves as both an ops and a marketing company. And so we have a great set of marketing advisors who are still, wildly active in the space. And then we have a whole set of operational advisors, ex-Amazon logistics folks who are helping us kind of stand up the operation. And that is truly a function of the relationships and the authentic relationships that I worked hard at building over the last decade. Those are friends and former colleagues who are interested in making this work, making this happen.
Yeah, let's talk about that, man. I want to put a bow on this to a degree, because people have great ideas all the time. Very few get to even the point that you're at. And again, in a very quick, and I don't mean that, I'm sure it was a lot of hard work. I'm sure it's like, I know building businesses is not easy.
Yeah.
But I want to get back into your mindset for a moment. Have the idea. What's my step one? What was your step one? What did that look like? Like, hey, I'm going to reach out. I have this really cool idea. Now what? And I think often this is the tripwire that people face, because it's like, well, cool. I see a problem. I see a solution, but man, I don't even know where to get started. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it looked like locking myself in a room for a month and just researching and reading everything I possibly could. I had my great grandfather started a metals company, an aluminum building company outside of Philadelphia. So we've kind of had a metals background in the family for a long time, not jewelry, not precious metals, not gold. And so when I had this idea, I really spent a lot of time just researching to make sure I wasn't pulling the wool over my own eyes. So I think by the time I finally pitched this to the first person outside of my own head, and I wouldn't recommend this to anyone else, this is probably my own like neuroses and neuroticism, but I probably ended up with like a 40-page slide deck and probably like a 3 to 5 year pro forma financial model, and then took it to the smartest finance and strategists and business folks that I know and said, poke a hole in it. And I probably spent a month or two traveling to visit some of the smartest people I know, spending a day with them, walking them through the idea, the financial models, and saying to them, like, look, I don't want to take this leap. If you feel like that, like, poke a hole, help me figure out why this doesn't work. And we spent a long time. I spent about a month, I think, doing that. And once, we kind of looked at it cumulatively and said, like, we think that this could probably work on paper. Everything's different when you put it in the world, but on paper, this looks like it could work. I took the leap.
All right. That is complete gold. But no, I in all seriousness, I hope everybody heard what he did and how intentional he was about this. He went out and sought feedback and said, please beat the shit out of this thing.
Yes.
There's got to be something I'm missing here. And not only did he not take offense to whatever was said, because I'm sure I've been in those rooms, like, this is off, this is wrong, you're missing this.
Yes.
But he's actually saying, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And does this actually make sense? Which obviously it did at the end of the day, but you went slow, if you will, in order to really accelerate your speed. And this is the part that I think people don't like to do, is that feedback piece. I want to make sure I'm so intentional about talking about this.
Yes.
That is truly, and I mean it, that is a gold nugget that he gave you. Anybody that's sitting there like, okay, I have a good idea, do what Brandon did. It is so freaking smart, you guys. So what does it look like for you day to day, Brandon? Obviously founder. Are you CEO? Have you replaced yourself? Because I notice you don't have titles. You're very similar to me. You're not a title guy.
Yeah.
You obviously are a leader. But what does that look like for you on a day to day basis in the business today?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. To go back to what you just said, though, one other piece of advice that I have to give, I feel compelled to give, because I was never told this and I realized it very quickly. When you start out on your entrepreneurial journey, whether it's your first time, whether it's your 10th time, you need to be totally okay with knowing absolutely nothing and being the novice. And if you are not comfortable with that, it's going to be really, really hard for you to succeed. You have to be okay with knowing nothing and allowing other people to know that you know nothing, or you're never going to learn. So anyway, just based on what we were just talking about, I feel like it's a really, really important thing that I had to learn kind of the hard way. Was like, you better suspend your ego. You better be at the bottom of the totem pole, or you're never, ever going to climb. So you got to be comfortable with that at the end of the day. In terms of my day to day, I have no 2 days that are the same right now. I am currently operating as the CEO. My main focus right now is, honestly, we're seeing this transition right now from kind of like chaotic startup mode, find product market fit, establish, our cost structure, revenue streams, to more of like, okay, now that we figured that out, how do we take ourselves from, and I mean this so lovingly, like a mom and pop company, to more of like a capital C corporation. And so that transition is what I'm focused on 99% of the day right now. And that includes, hiring executives, working on back end processes, ensuring, customer support is up and running, ensuring operations are optimized, all that kind of stuff.
So I'm curious. Oh, by the way, I love that you stopped on that point and said, yes, be comfortable not knowing anything. Be comfortable saying, just like I said to you, like, treat me like a 5-year-old and act like I don't know anything. Because I will tell you that ego that we have from previous experiences, we all have it.
Yep.
It can serve you, or it can absolutely get in your way and cost you a lot of time, energy, and money. And trust me, my ego has done it many times, including in this company, where I thought I knew something. I thought I had achieved something. It's a totally different animal. So I'm so glad you said that. Gosh darn, I got derailed because I know what I was going to ask. I'm curious, as again, you're creating this culture. You really like doing the entrepreneurial thing. Will it become somewhat of a corporate culture for you? And if not, how do you avoid that? I'm not saying it's bad, and I don't want it to come off that way.
No,
but it is a fascinating thing that can happen for us where, okay, I was in corporate, then I went entrepreneur, and guess what? I'm right back into the corporate world, and it's like, man, how the heck did that happen?
Yeah.
What's kind of your plan with that, Brandon? What's your ultimate vision for Alloy?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. One of the things I've learned is not to plan too far ahead, because things change so quickly. But when it comes to kind of being intentional about creating a culture and, preventing what you're talking about, which is a big fear of mine, like slipping from that startup fun, their mistakes are a good thing kind of a culture, to like a corporate, buttoned up and everything is serious. I think we're taking really specific and concrete steps to avoid that. And I'll give you some examples. So PTO, we don't even have a conversation about it at Alloy. It's unlimited. We don't talk about it. We encourage it constantly. I will even here and there, in all honesty, you know how hard it gets to wake up Monday through Friday. If I need to take a day off on Friday because it has just been a crazy week, I tell my team, like, guys, it's been a nutty week. Guys and gals, it's been a nutty week. I need to take the day off. Mental health is extremely important. I want my team to know that. I want to demonstrate that first and foremost. We offer floating holidays at our company. So not everybody celebrates the same holidays. I don't know there are people who celebrate this and that. And the other thing, so yes, we offer like the federally mandated holidays, but we also have a whole set of floating holidays. So if people have important milestones in their lives or celebrate holidays that I don't, or that the federal government doesn't recognize as a holiday, they can take them. So we're trying to be really, really thoughtful about making sure that the foundation of our culture is such that we don't fall into that kind of bureaucratic corporate trap where everything is like hyper serious and regimented, and we don't want to get there. So that's our focus.
Yeah. No, I like it. And I will say there's a great book out there, Drive by Daniel Pink.
Yeah.
And what I'm hearing is result only work environment. Like, look, it's not 9 to 5, 60 hours. None of that stuff really matters.
No.
I mean, we are so past that unless you're in a retail space.
Yes.
Or a service position where it requires that. But I really like what I'm hearing is like, hey guys, you need that mental health day, take it.
Yeah.
If you're doing great work, I'm not micromanaging. That's literally the opposite. I love to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, Jam, my head, and I just have to tell you, because people think the folks that my mentors who I talk to, some people think I'm crazy. When I first partnered with my current head of marketing, who is absolutely one of the most brilliant people I have ever met. He's just an absolute genius. He said, and I think our first meeting, do you care like what my hours are? Do you care what time I work? Like, I know you're on the East Coast, he's Central Time. I was like, I don't give a shit. I was like, we know what we need to achieve. We know that if we don't achieve it, we're out of business. And so work whenever you want. And so I think today his workday is 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. And I don't care because his results are exceptional. We work excellent together. We get enough overlap during the day where it's fine. And so if I'm on from 9 to 5, he's on from 2 to 11, great. It works. I don't need to know that his butt is in his seat from 9 a.m. to 5. That just doesn't equal output. And I think for far too long, people have made that association.
Yeah. And I love the question that he asked you. I think look, if you had said, yes, it does, he's probably not here today is my guess.
Correct.
Like,
absolutely.
No, this is my lifestyle, which means for whatever reason, 2 to 11 makes sense for me. That's when I operate the best. That's when I've taken care of the kids, whatever his lifestyle is.
Yep.
And to your point, you're like, great, dude, like
Awesome.
Get the work done. I'm happy. Gosh, I have so many questions. I'm curious, I'll ask one more and then I'll give you open forum for something I didn't know enough to ask. Was there any major surprises that you were like, wow, didn't expect that one? That was a curveball coming out of left field, even though I did my due diligence, even though I surrounded myself with really smart people. That was a curveball I didn't expect.
Yes. So the biggest investment I have ever made was the biggest mistake I have ever made. So I started Alloy thinking to myself, this is an app. This is a mobile app. People are going to download the mobile app. Am I even going to need to market this? It's going to be so good. Like, gosh, this is going to be the best app. It's not an app. If you could go check out our website. There's no app. So we built an app. There is an app. You just probably can't find it today. And it cost a lot of money to realize that all of our traffic wanted to come through web and nobody wanted to take the extra step to download an app. So, I'm here to say first, earliest, biggest mistake I made was pouring a whole bunch of my 401k into building an app that we are not using. So
I will say this. I'm sorry your 401k took the hit. However, education is extremely expensive at times.
Yes.
And it's probably one of the best mistakes that you could have made.
Yeah.
What didn't I know enough to ask you, Brandon? Because literally this is fascinating. You're an interesting guy leading a really cool company. I just open for him. Anything I didn't know enough to ask you that you want to make sure to share?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, one of the things that you had kind of asked me and mentioned was kind of like subject matter expertise in this particular space. So my mentors and the folks that I kind of turn to are Fortune 500 executives, like those types of folks. They're not really in gold. They're not really in jewelry. I'm kind of like a lone wolf in the space. And so the reason I say all that is because even if you have a really good idea and it's for a domain or a space that you haven't necessarily operated in, or even if you don't have a ton of people in your network who are experts in it, if you believe in the idea and you're willing to put in the work to learn and figure it out and be at the bottom of the totem pole and ask the questions and be embarrassed and show up at a refinery having never showed up in a refinery before and being like, hi, nice to meet you. Can you tell me how this all works? You know, you can learn it. You really can. So I wouldn't prevent yourself from taking the leap or taking the risk or taking the chance just because you don't know everything right now. You're not going to. So just take it as an opportunity to learn and try something new. And that's what we did. And I feel incredibly lucky and grateful that it is working out the way it is so far. So, but yeah, that's just the piece of advice that I would give to everyone is like, look, don't hold yourself back. Like, you got it. You can figure it out.
Dude, it's brilliant advice. I absolutely, it's sage advice. And you know what? It's one of those things that we all need to remember. I think it's fascinating, brother. I can't wait to check out Alloy. I'm definitely telling my wife about it because we have so much. Her dad used to be a jeweler and her mom.
Yeah.
So we have so much of this lying about that. No, I would be that guy. Like, I don't know what to do with this stuff.
Yes.
But somebody could get great value from it.
Great.
So it's amazing. If people wanted to reach you, Brandon, whether it's to learn more about Alloy, just hear more about your story, where's the best place to connect with you online?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, our website has great info. It's the Alloy Market, THE Alloy, ALLOY Market, spelled like market.com. That has our About Us video, more information about us, how our process works, and you know, at the end of the day, what we are most proud of and what I want folks to really know is that we are a mission-driven organization focused on helping people. So don't feel bad. Reach out. We'd love to answer your questions. And JM, this was awesome. I sincerely appreciate the time.
Oh, brother, thank you. I literally, I can't, it's so bad. I just want to keep saying golden nuggets, but
I know
you dropped them, man. You really did. Thanks for coming, man. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Guys, go check it out. Look, I guarantee you have a bunch of this stuff sitting around your house. I'm not saying if you don't want to sell it, don't. But if you didn't know, go check it out. A mission-driven company giving you not 10 or 20%, but literally we're talking 4 times or more for your whatever, the heirlooms, the stuff that's been passed down to you. This is such a great resource. I cannot tell you. I didn't know where this interview was going to go. I'm so fired up it went as well as it did. Awesome. And until next time, you guys remember your mindset matters. I appreciate all of you so much. We'll talk soon.